All right, so this, of course, the big talking point that we'll be discussing over the course of this fine print. Israel is, of course, heading for the polls for the 5th time in the last 4 years. And what lies ahead of Tuesday's elections? Will it mean the return of the former strongman Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, or can Yair Lapid actually cobble up enough seats to hang on in power? So we'll be taking a look at the backdrop of these upcoming polls. Let's first tell you a bit about the former Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. He was the longest serving Prime Minister in Israel's history. He was the Prime Minister till 2021. In 2019, remember, Netanyahu had even been indicted on charges of serious corruption. And during the upcoming polls, and this is what is being predicted, his right-wing Likud party could emerge as the single largest party, but still it would not be able to get a majority on its own. Now, Netanyahu has failed to keep a hold on the coalition government in the last 4 elections, and Netanyahu's big rival for the top spot, of course, is the current Prime Minister, Yair Lapid. His party is likely to emerge as the second largest party in the Israeli parliament. But his party also is not expected to win outright, and he has fewer allies than Netanyahu this time round. And then there is Defense Minister Benny Gantz. He heads the centre-right National Unity Party. His party is expected to trail Netanyahu and also Yair Lapid's party, and he's still projecting himself as the next prime ministerial candidate, however. Now, opinion polls are also stating that the smaller parties could end up becoming kingmakers again. And one party that is especially garnering a lot of interest is the far-right Jewish Power Party. It is headed by an individual known as Itamar Ben-Gvir. In 2017, Ben-Gvir was convicted for racist incitement and also for support for a group on both the Israeli and the US blacklists as terrorists. Now, Ben-Gvir and also his allies are expected to come in the 3rd position in the upcoming elections. And then there are, of course, the Arabs within the Israeli polity. They form about 20% of Israel's population but are underrepresented in the Israeli parliament. A high turnout by the Israeli Arabs could, of course, harm Netanyahu's chances of return. The outgoing government had an Arab party in the ruling coalition for the first time in Israel's history. Now, Israel has faced political turmoil for the last 4 years, and reports, in fact, say that the voters are less concerned about security and diplomacy. They want a government to address the rise in the cost of living. And Netanyahu's opponents don't want someone that they see as corrupt leading the country. They think they'd actually use his power to avoid a conviction. Now, all of these are factors that will play a big part in the polls that are, of course, upcoming next Tuesday. And also to give us more insights in terms of what, of course, is expected in these crucial elections that will take place in Israel, we're being joined by Dr. Amatzia Barham, who is a Professor Emeritus at the University of Haifa. Now, Professor, thank you very much indeed for taking time out and speaking to us here on WION. This will be the 5th general election in Israel in the last 4 years. Even at this point of time, as things stand in terms of what the polls are predicting, no party is expected to win an outright majority. And that has never happened in Israel's history. But a lot of people are saying that this election could, of course, signal the return of Benjamin Netanyahu again. But he also is facing a lot of serious corruption charges. How likely is he to actually make a return by cobbling enough allies together?
At this moment, of course, nobody knows and nobody dares to guess. But my analysis is he has maybe 51% chance of getting 51% of the votes. This will be enough for him, at least for the time being. And he's not opting for more than, we have 120 Knesset members or parliamentaries. Out of those, he needs 61. Right. That's all. So I give him a little more than 50% chance to get it. But it's still touch and go. It's still not so.
You know, the fact that he's been indicted of serious corruption charges, how likely is it that this is an issue that will figure on the minds of the common Israelis when they head to the polling stations?
Well, it's an issue for 50% of the Israelis, but it's not, or less than 50%, but it's not an issue for, let's say 40% would say never a guy like that can be prime minister as long as he's in the bench, and 40% more or less say, oh, it doesn't matter, makes no difference, legally it's okay, which is true, legally it's okay. It's all, so the most important thing, it's really very, very new in, well, more or less new in Israel. Right. The deciding factor is cultural, or I would define it as identity. Mm-hmm. If you and your parents are coming from a Middle Eastern country, an Arab Islamic country, there is a 60% chance that you will be voting for Bibi. Right. If your parents are coming from Europe or America or Australia or whatever, then 60% chance that you will be voting against Bibi. So it's for Bibi and against Bibi, and it's largely a matter, it's not the first time, but for the first time it's so obvious, a matter of identity.
I think you've hit the nail on the head, as to how important a role identity plays in democracy. And that of course, is something that we'll be looking at very closely when the election happens. But Professor, I also want you to weigh in on what are the chances of Yair Lapid, the outgoing Prime Minister, is actually going out on a bit of a high. He's managed to strike that all-crucial deal with Lebanon of establishing those maritime borders. Do you think the Israeli people would want a coalition led by Yair Lapid to be at the helm of affairs again?
It won't make any difference, even though it was a good agreement. It was a good agreement that is basically agreed upon. Not everybody agrees, but I'd say 70-80% of the Israelis agree that it was not a bad agreement. It also reduces the influence of Hezbollah in Lebanon, which is good. Mm-hmm. And it is reducing also the influence of Iran in Lebanon, which is good too. And it will allow both countries to produce gas, which is very important now for world economy. So yes, it's seen as a good agreement. However, by most. However, and the however is very big, it is not going to influence anybody to vote for or against the government or for Bibi.
All right. Now, my final question to you, Professor, is about the party of Ben Gvir. And his party seems to be getting a lot of attention, not just within Israel, but also, internationally. He's said to be heading a party that is described as far-right, more right-wing than Benjamin Netanyahu's Likud party. And this time round, it is being said that in this election, he's managed to get enough traction that he could emerge as the kingmaker of Israeli politics. What is your take on Ben Gvir and his Jewish Power Party?
It's absolutely correct. He will be the kingmaker and he will make Bibi the king. There's no question about it. If they get 61 parliament members out of 120, yes. The problem is here that this is a totally new component. We never had anything like it. Nothing even close to that. And these people are, to my mind, quite dangerous. Now, as an historian, I can say Netanyahu's policies on security issues and on relations between Jewish and Arab citizens in Israel have always been very balanced, very normal, very reasonable. However, he never depended for his very existence, political existence, on people like those. So this is a big enigma. If he insists that he is guiding, he is leading, and you don't tell me what to do about A, B, and C, then he will still manage to ride the storm. But if they will become very domineering, then he will do what they force him to do, because he is on a trial now, on a criminal trial, and they will be the only ones who can save him from conviction. So, that is a big enigma of these elections, beyond the question who is going to win.
I think that's a crucial aspect of what will happen after these elections, especially Ben Gvir and his Jewish Power Party, and how it will change Israeli politics in a certain way over the course of the next few months and years is what we'll be looking out for. Thank you very much indeed, Professor, for joining us from Haifa and getting us all those updates there.
You are welcome.
WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.